You're listening to the Wordslinger Podcast, episode 119, Indie Author Audiobooks with Kelly Lytle. This episode of the Wordslinger Podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. You have tuned in yet again. Now, if you have done this by accident, never fear. Your exits are to the left and to the right. Please make sure that you check your overhead baggage, as contents may have shifted during the flight. So, how's everybody doing? You know, I hear speeches like that about maybe 4 times a month right now, and I've almost got them memorized. But you know, travel, by the way, is a lot of fun if you do get the opportunity. Now, it's exhausting. It's exhausting, and I do start to miss home quite a bit. You know, I miss my wife and I miss my dog, and you know, so travel has had its ups and downs. But for the most part, I really dig getting out in the world, meeting people who maybe have heard of the show or maybe have never heard of the show. I particularly like meeting authors because, you know, we're a good bunch and we drink and we'll talk about anything. Here's the great thing about being a writer. And this is something, honestly, and I have a philosophy about writers, but writers can and will talk about anything. Any subject is open. Sometimes things get a little heated, but, you know, for the most part, all writers, anyone who is truly in love with writing is really, they're a processor. I mean, they're an information processing machine, and they like to construct stories out of the information they receive. So it's always good to be able to sit down with a group of writers and talk. I have this philosophy that writers make the best employees across the board. And of course I would say that, but here's how I back that up. I have, whenever I've had to hire people, either for myself or for, you know, a company I've worked for, or on behalf of a client or something along those lines, I almost always favor going out and talking to copywriters and getting them enlisted to do various jobs. You know, a lot of copywriters are, they're sort of multidisciplined. They go out and they look for the story in everything that they're, you know, having to research. They have to be able to boil down information and get it, you know, into a format that is digestible, readable. So writers tend to make great employees, regardless of what you're hiring for. That's just my philosophy. Now, you know, there may be some training involved, especially in highly technical fields. But most of the writers I know actually are very versatile and pick things up very quickly. So that's free advice. If you are if you're looking for someone to hire for a role, and you need them to be sharp, you need them to be able to do research, to work autonomously, to be able to process information and report it in such a way that any target audience can understand it, you would do a lot worse than to start your search with writers. So that's some free advice from the Wordslinger. Entrepreneurs in particular, if you are a startup, man, I'm not kidding you. Go out and look for writers who have even just an inkling of knowledge about the field that you're entering into. You will find them a wealth of ideas, but also they tend to jump on action items. So anyway, I don't know why I got on that tangent. It's something to do with travel, I'm sure, but whatever. Anyway, this week, now here's what's interesting. I've got Kelly Lytle. Now, if you have been paying attention to me at all lately, you know I've talked quite a bit about the partnership between Draft to Digital and Findaway. Findaway is launching a service called Voices, and the idea here is to empower indie authors, any authors really, anyone really, to be able to produce audiobooks with lower overhead than what you've probably come to expect. Now, indies have been able to use services like Audible's ACX for quite a while. That's Audible Content Exchange. That will allow you to go in and do, among other things, find narrators who are willing to partner with you on a royalty split. Voices will not do the royalty split, but there's a very good reason for that. And at first I chafed against this, and now I'm 100% on board. But basically, the royalty split is kind of damaging to both the narrator and the author. For the author, just to put it in plain speak, I mean, you're committing half your royalty to someone else for the lifetime of that book. Or for at least as long as that audio creation is floating out there. And in the case of ACX, it tends to be a 7-year commitment. And an exclusive commitment at that. So, and even if you just hire the narrator and use that file elsewhere, and you don't go exclusive, you're still on the hook. Basically, for as long as you use that book, as long as the deal you're cutting is that you will split that royalty until the end of that book's life. So. That audiobook's life. So now there are caveats to that and exceptions, but for the most part, that's what you're doing, and to me that's damaging to the author. Now I'm not going to get in. I don't want to go into too much detail on that. We're going to talk about that in the interview. So make sure you listen through. Kelly is a great guy. We've he and I we're sort of each other's. I guess we're each other's counterpart between the two companies in a way. And, I've gotten him on a few podcasts, and, he's starting to kind of talk to the indie author community a little more. And I think that's working out very well. So he and I have had a lot of conversations together, and we've done a few shows together. So you'll hear us talk about this in the interview because there's a bit of not awkwardness really, but there's a slight awkwardness in that we already know everything the other's going to say. So unlike most of the interviews I do, this one is a little different, and I contribute probably a little more than I normally would on the content side. But I think you're going to get a lot out of this. If you're interested in audiobooks, honestly, it's a huge thing. I mean, I think every author should work out how to get their books into audio. It's just a smart play. But anyway, I got two new podcast reviews I want to read off today. The first one, I'm just looking at these right now. You're getting these the exact same time I am. So this is titled Wordslinger Jr. From Julian 1. I just finished binge listening to all prior episodes, and now I'm waiting for the next. Needless to say, I am officially a great fan. Kevin's style and demeanor is awesome, and the content is, for the most part, all about the story. I have been inspired by this podcast and am now halfway through the first draft of my first novel. Thanks, Kevin. Keep them coming. I think Julian, we actually mentioned him last episode. But thank you, Julian. I really do appreciate that. The show is about the story, honestly, for the most part, but in all parts, really, because what we're doing is getting into the sort of details, the subtext, the internal dialogue. We're trying to find out the behind-the-scenes story of how people do what they do and what they're accomplishing and what their goals are, and how it can help you. So I'm glad to hear that's coming through. So the next review is inspiring, great interviews, love the host. This is from Dan the Art Man. Hey Dan, how you doing, man? So Kevin is such a positive and encouraging guy. You can't help but be inspired to write more and write better when you listen to his show. He has a super relaxed way of interviewing authors too. He gets a lot of great answers out of them, and you can tell they're more relaxed and having a good time because he's so chill. He's chill, but also very determined and driven, and it's awesome to get some of that energy when you listen to an episode. I love this show. Dan, man, I appreciate that a lot. And you know what? I dig that, actually. I like being chill, and I like getting people pumped up, too. So that's another, point to this show, really. I want you to learn something. I mean, I want you discover something new, like we're going to discover with this interview with Kelly. But I also want you to walk away feeling like this is attainable for you. Humans have a remarkable capacity to learn and grow, and inspiration is sort of the starting point of that. So thanks so much, guys, for the reviews. If you would like to help out the Wordslinger podcast, make it a little more discoverable, you can also review the show. Go onto iTunes in particular, anywhere really that you listen to the show, but iTunes tends to be the place where most people discover us. Let's change that, though. Let's make it everywhere. But if you go on iTunes or wherever you listen to the show, search for Wordslinger Podcast and rate and rank the show. Give it, I would appreciate 5 stars. You can give it 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever you're comfortable with. But I like those 5. And if you will write something, tell me what it is you're getting out of the show. What is it you find positive? What have what are you learning? What do you appreciate? And that helps other people discover the show and hopefully grow from it too. So that is the point of the Wordslinger podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. I really do. We'll talk more about how to support the show in that way and other ways after we wrap up this interview. So let's not delay any further. We're 11 minutes in. Let's get to this excellent interview with my good friend and sort of businessy partner type guy. Our companies are partnered on Findaway Voices. We're going to talk with Kelly Lytle. See you after the interview. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Now today I'm talking, this is a little different than the typical Wordslinger podcast interview, only in that I actually know this guy and we've had quite a few conversations together. We've actually been on a couple of podcasts together so far, but I'm talking to Kelly Lytle. He's the head of Findaway Voices. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because it is the new partnership that, there is a partnership between Drafted Digital and Findaway on the launch of this thing, and it will be coming up. Let's see, July, is it 18th? It's 18th, right, Kelly?
It's coming fast, that's what I can say.
It's like next weekend, man. So anyway, welcome to the show, Kelly.
Hey, thanks for having me on. How was your 4th?
It was good. I mean, it was pretty uneventful for the Tumlinsons because my wife decided this was her long weekend, so she didn't want to do much. We took a couple of short road trips here and there, but for the most part, it was just sitting around. We've been binging Game of Thrones, trying to kind of refresh our memory on everything for the.
Yeah, I knew that's why we got along. We actually, my fiance and I just finished up seasons 5 and 6 again. Yeah. So, we've got the right frame of mind going into what? Not this Sunday, but next Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. Is it next Sunday? Yeah, it's next Sunday. Yeah, 17th, 18th, something like that. I can never keep, for some reason, anything that happens on the 17th or 18th completely blows out of my brain. And that may be because my mom's birthday is July 17th. So
there you go.
Important stuff. So how was yours? You did all right, I guess. You survived. You got all 10 fingers.
Yeah, all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. We survived. Had some pretty nice weather. Got to see some family and, just kind of hang out and relax a little bit. We have quite a bit happening. Yeah. And so it was good to get a couple days away and refresh. And obviously now we're gearing up for our big launch here in, almost just under 2 weeks now. So we're pretty excited about that. So, but it was a great holiday.
Close. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. So a lot of people may actually be wondering what the heck we're talking about. So we might want to actually discuss what Findaway Voices is. And I've already introduced the idea that there's a D2D partnership. So why don't you kind of break it down for us? Like what is Voices and how does it benefit the author?
Absolutely. So Voices is Findaway Voices, a new service created specifically to help authors and publishers create audiobooks and then sell those audiobooks really everywhere in the world that audiobooks are sold. And we do this explicitly with the goal of giving authors and publishers more freedom and more control than they have today, really than they've ever had before. Yeah. And there's a host of benefits for authors, but the 4 biggest ones I'll talk about or just highlight non-exclusive. So we're a 100% non-exclusive platform. Control over how you set your price and being paid off the list price that you set, and also control over where you sell your book. We work with over 20 distribution partners, and you can opt in or out of any of them. Ownership, you'll always own 100% of the rights to your work. And then 4 is the service commitment of Findaway and the Findaway Voices team behind everything we do. So there's huge value we believe we can bring to the author community. And then specific to our relationship, Voices and Drafted Digital have created a partnership where we make it easy. It's now easier than it's ever been, especially for Drafted Digital authors, to create audiobooks and do so really in almost what I would describe as a very seamless interaction transition between their Drafted Digital account and their Findaway Voices account, where we make that handoff very smooth, very easy, and get you into our system to hear sample narrators, make your narrator selection, tell us about your book, and do all of those fun things to get your audiobook off and running. And like I said, it's easier than it's ever been before.
Yeah, it's very exciting because audiobooks are something. It's kind of one of those. Every author wants to have the audiobook. They want that audience, but some of the options that have been available out there have not been all that great. And so now, we're doing the whole thing where we're going to be kind of a portal. Like people, all their data about that book gets transferred over, and they can start production. The production process right away, right from their dashboard, basically their author dashboard.
Exactly. So with while you're inside Drafted Digital, simple click to begin the process of creating audio will transfer all of your information, including the EPUB file, including the artwork, all of the book details, right into Voices. You'll be able to answer a few easy questions to tell us about your book, and we'll go through our process to create great narrator recommendations for you. And meanwhile, you don't have to worry about entering all of the information that you've already entered with Drafted Digital. It's all right there for you. We have some fun tools to make that even easier, things that help you create your cover art or adapt your cover art from the ebook format right into the audiobook format, since there's some subtle differences. And just things like that where I'm sure we have not thought of everything, because you never can, but I think we've taken pretty remarkable care to make it as easy as a process, as smooth as a process as possible, and put the author first at every step. So I'm excited about it, and that those integration points are going to be really easy to use for the author, and I think a great benefit for everyone who works with Drafted Digital today.
Yeah, man. I have to say that if Drafted Digital were an audiobook production company, we would be you guys, and vice versa. Because you're very, very similar. We're very similar in the way we approach the business and the authors.
Exactly. Like, the thing that you guys said that, I think, helps form the bond, is, authors first at every single step.
Right.
And again, we'll never, think of everything or anticipate everything. But I think, with that mindset, it means that you'll constantly innovate. You'll constantly create the right systems and features as you evolve. And you're always thinking of what makes it as easy as possible and as seamless as possible to capitalize on audio, which, as you said, authors have been thinking about and they've been hearing about. It is the fastest growing format in publishing. People are listening to more audiobooks than ever before because of the ease of access on our mobile devices. And so, hey, let's really create a dedicated platform that helps authors tap into that, because it really is the best way to reach a growing audience, and an audience that's not going to stop growing given technology.
Right. Yeah. What's interesting to me, okay, so we will never be able to avoid the comparison to ACX. So what we've decided to do is to just embrace it and go full into it, just lean on in, because we're in a lot of ways trying to break the model that ACX has set up for the audiobook production, and specifically that model of first and foremost, the royalty share, the royalty split model, but also the credit model. Do you want to talk about either of those things real quick?
Yeah, I'll talk about each of them, and then I'll actually put sort of an umbrella or a higher level view on it. At the end of the day, it all comes down to more choice and more freedom for the author, right. More choice in where you sell your audiobook, and that can mean both partners who are selling the book, but it can also mean business models. So business models beyond the credit-based model that we've seen be successful, not just in audiobooks, but in other digital formats. And more freedom, where you're choosing to sell, how you're choosing to price, never being asked for exclusivity. And with that as the overarching philosophy and definitely the shared philosophy between Draft to Digital and Voices, well, now you're in a great place to create something really meaningful for authors. And specifically to your point, with regards to the royalty share option, with Voices, all of our audiobooks are done on a pay-for-production basis, meaning the author is paying for the narrator's performance. And we do that very specifically because it means the author owns more of the royalties for the lifetime of their book and their book sales. And that concept of full ownership, it permeates everything that we do. And so we carry that through on the production side as well. And then, yep. So I don't know if you want to go into that more, or I can touch on business models too. But that's such a good point. Yes.
Yeah. Let's look at the business model side of it then.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Voices. We have over 20 partners. I want to say we have 7 or 8 unique business models. Includes a la carte sales, credit-based subscription models, which are what most audiobook consumers are used to, which is the Audible, I pay X dollars a month and I'm entitled to 1 credit or 2 credits that I in turn exchange for an audiobook. But we also have several partners who have unlimited subscription models, which for their customers or for their subscribers, they're paying a flat monthly fee for unlimited access to the book, or to the catalog of audiobooks. And for authors, this is can be tremendous value, where you're actually still paid off the list price that you've set. So for the author, in many ways, it's the same as an a la carte, a basic, one-to-one retail sale. But there's for the subscriber, there's no barrier to entry there. So listeners on these platforms are able to just gobble up great amounts of content and do so just without any hesitation or without any interruption. So for authors who have maybe a series of books who are shorter, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 words, where consumer can listen very quickly and can move from one to the next, man, that's a great opportunity to tap into a growing market. If you have even shorter content, that can work great too. But at the end of the day, look, it's all about the choice being afforded to the author for where to sell their book, and not being sort of forced into one business model or one option.
Yeah, you mentioned shorter stuff, and that is one of the exciting things to me, because, all right, so the problem with the credit system with Audible, you get your 1 or 2 credits, maybe you popped for 3, and what you do as a reader is you tend to get only the long format books, the longest you can get for your credit, because you don't want to blow them on something, you don't want to waste them, quote unquote, on something that only takes like 30 minutes to complete. So for the author, that means that the long format stuff is the only thing it sells. So if you have a collection of short stories, you have to put them all together in one collection to really even make it beneficial. And so you kind of miss out on a chance for additional royalties, and using those as maybe a series to sort of nurture leads and that sort of thing. So that's one of the exciting things to me about this, is that if I am able to release a bunch of short fiction, novellas, short stories, or whatever, serials particularly, then I can sort of spread out the love a little. I can price them any way I want, which is awesome. There are benefits there that you don't get with Audible. That, to me, that's just powerful.
Look, you said it. You said it very well. I mean, that's exactly right. I'll carry it a step further. And so, as you know, obviously, So many authors on the ebook side have been successful with series and serializing their books. But if you actually think about the way audio is consumed, in whether it's not just an audiobook, but podcasts, other forms of audio, serialization has always worked there, whether it's radio broadcasts or podcasts, with new episodes and new channels, and things like that. So as you're right to say, that credit model forces you almost to bundle 10 pieces of content into one. Well, you're missing out on that chance to capture more consumers and build awareness and an audience, kind of that snowball effect with each subsequent serial release. And then two, the great thing about some of the unlimited subscription environments is they work so well with that same amount of time that podcasts slot into so well, somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes, which coincides with average commute times. And so again, if you have content that can be consumed in those chunks, it works really well, where a listener is able to in 1 week on just their commute maybe listen to book one of your one of your shorter series, and then that weekend they're jumping right into book two, and you haven't had to package it all together as one. They're able to just move seamlessly from one to the other. I think that's great value.
Yeah, it is. You know what, you bring up something that I actually kind of inadvertently brought up on another podcast interview I did. And I meant to ask you before we did this, but now I'm going to ask you on air and put the pressure on you. Sometimes Audible in particular they'll offer content that isn't strictly speaking a book. Are you guys going to allow that kind of content? Like, let's say that I want to convert interviews from my podcast, for example, and do something serialized that way, or do something like Rhonda Byrne did with The Secret, the audiobook of The Secret, where she narrated segments, but she also played interview clips. Are we free to do that sort of thing through Voices?
Yep, absolutely. At the highest level, is as long as you own the rights, we'll work with you and we'll make that happen. So I can tell you, we've recorded, what I would call very, for us, as we're used to audiobooks, very short form content. So we've actually taken collections of news articles and packaged them up into an hour-long audiobook, which is super fun. So it's 10 news articles, all packaged together as one audiobook. And again, it's a trial program we're doing with a publisher of ours. So we're just wrapping that. I'm excited to see where that goes, and I could see that being of value down the road. If you have, specific in your case where you have all the your historical podcasts and your episodes, we can do a couple of things, right? You can stitch them together into one sort of thematically linked book if you wanted to, or you could mix and match and have it sort of just all over the place. Or again, they're each, somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes, which fits perfectly with that consumer, that commute time. You could release them individually, effectively as your own audiobook, and our system is set up in a way that you can easily publish and do that. And again, there's two then downstream or distribution benefits of that. One, you'll be able to reach our entire partner base, which is fantastic. And then two, because you still own the rights, you can have them on YouTube, you can have them on SoundCloud, you can have them on Boom, wherever you want to then take them as well. You're able to still do that, and we don't prohibit that in any way. So you really get not just some of maybe the more traditional podcast networks or other non-audiobook audio listening networks, but you also then can make them as effectively an audiobook and reach all the listeners that way. Again, it's about creating more avenues for people to hear you, and with us all carrying around our mobile phones and being able to listen at any moment. Man, that's just an opportunity that's only going to continue to grow. So it's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. The possibilities are, they're limitless, because and I've always pitched this to anytime I've ever talked to anyone about a marketing strategy based on content. The idea is to leverage content in as many directions and as widely as possible. So if
Yep.
you can take something like, I always pitch doing video interviews, and from that you could stitch together 10 different products easily, but from podcasts to, audiobooks to even courses. So I love that, man. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And again, for us, we are, Findaway, even before Findaway Voices, we've been in the audiobook and the digital content arena for over a decade, and we've innovated in a few different ways. And for us, it is all about growing the audio format.
Yeah.
And our area of expertise happens to, mostly focus in the audiobook area, but at the same time, there are benefits to just continuing to help consumers access different forms of audio as often as they can. And so there's huge value to be had there. So we're looking to, we are so bullish, to use a quote from my old Wall Street days, on the audio format, that the more content we can make in audio and the more ways we can get that to listeners, that's the win for us.
Right. That's fantastic, man. And it then opens up a lot of opportunities for the author who may not be able to afford full production, right away too. Like they could. There are still avenues for them to get at least their thoughts, at least some of their work out to a listenership. I kind of pitched the idea of it's a lot easier if you do want to kind of get into doing the narration yourself. It's a lot. I think it would be a lot easier to produce short format work yourself if you had to save overhead, and then you could always roll the profits from that into paying somebody to do your longer format stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's cool.
And again, we're set up to handle all of that. So I think it's great. And again, it's about getting more content out there, more created in audio form, and we want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. This has been, I have to tell you, by the way, so when we announced that this was coming, Draft to Digital has not traditionally done a pre-announcement of anything. So this was kind of an experiment on our part. I've been pushing for this forever, man. But getting that word out there, it was explosive. I'm still fielding emails and social media messages and comments about the upcoming release, and we haven't even really talked about it much since that initial release. So people are out there wanting this.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, the response and the feedback from that pre-announcement, if you will, was incredible. I mean, we were floored. Obviously, the Voices is something that we are passionate about: the freedom, the control, the ownership, the non-exclusivity. We've seen these elements create so much success for authors on the ebook side. We want to bring that same value to audio, but it also speaks to just the interest, or almost that pent up interest, where people have been asking themselves, like, I know audio is growing, and I am listening to more audio, non-music audio than I ever have before. How do I do this? Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's like the right place, the right time, capitalizing on the right strategy and right partnership, and boom, all of a sudden it's just that perfect storm that creates a fantastic spark. And I think it's the right time for this sort of solution. There's no question about that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about what forms work best in audiobook, like genre. Are there some genres that work better than others, or does nonfiction work better than fiction?
Yeah, that's a great question. Overall, if I think about the content that's consumed on our platform and created on our platform, you still have fiction and genre fiction leading the way. So similar to ebooks, where fantasy and science fiction, mystery and thriller, romance and erotica. Yeah. Those are still major categories, huge categories of listening. And of course, on the sort of indie author side, it works really well because you can, package those books as series, and is often the case. So that works very well. There's a lot of demand on the nonfiction, biography, and I'll call it business and leadership side.
Yeah.
We see tons of that, which makes sense. Historically, audiobooks have skewed to a slightly more male demographic, or at least more male demographic than you see on the ebook reading side.
Right.
And if you think about, historically, salesmen on the road and things like that, right? They're, listening to that type of book. So that's always been a very popular genre with audio. So those are the main ones. And then sort of the next wave that comes after that, we see a lot of the personal wellness and self-help. We see a lot of, I think health and wellness, Christian is another big seller. But again, by and large, it's, still that top tier in the genre fiction category. And then, that's followed up in the biography and then the business and leadership, those subject matters.
So is there a particular genre that outperforms the others?
In terms of raw listening, I would definitely say, somewhere mixed in the category of fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, thriller, romance. So not, again, very similar, I think, that you would see on the reading, e-reading statistic side.
Yeah, that's about right. Romance tends to rule in the ebook universe, and thrillers tend to take second place. So, yeah. Sci-fi and fantasy, weirdly enough, are very difficult sells. People do very well in them depending on how they're approaching their business, but they don't. It seems like they don't get discovered as easily, which is a problem we're working on. But speaking of discoverability, I mean, do you guys do any sort of promotion for the authors, or how do you get their work out there, and how do you help them to reach that level of discoverability?
Yep. Yeah. There's a few ways. So whenever you publish with Voices, you will receive a set of codes that will entitle you to offer free downloads with Audible. So Audible, Amazon network. So that's one great way to get the word out about your book. We also, we work very closely with all of our distribution partners. And so you can think of Findaway Voices almost working as on your behalf for you as the author, where we are every week and every month, creating recommendations and titles to feature to our partners, to, help inform their merchandising teams and their marketing teams, and ideally working for, more advantageous placement on all of those sites. And we have a few then specific promotions. There's some daily deal promotions that we can make available. We have great lists of bloggers and industry, thought leaders that we're friends with that, we're always open to helping facilitate in terms of trying to get reviews and recommendations and things like that. So we do all of that. I think we have some exciting ideas of where the discoverability piece will go in the future, but I think we're off to a great start with what we're doing today, especially, compared to what other options are out there, for that piece specifically today.
Right. So let's talk about process a little. As all right, we're gonna say you've published your book with Draft to Digital. You get to the point where there's a button there advertising that you can start your audiobook. They click through. So what happens at that point?
Yep, absolutely. So you click that magical button. You're ready to start your audiobook, and we are ready and waiting too. And all of your information will transfer right to Findaway Voices. You'll be basically created an account with inside our service. And of course, you can change your password and update your info at any time. Very easy to do. But most importantly, all of that information that you've already entered, we're bringing that right on in. So you don't have to do it again. Of course, you always you want to check it, but you don't have to do it again. And then our team, what we'll do is our biggest step. We want to learn more about your book and the type of narrator you are imagining. So we have some questions. They're not hard to answer, actually pretty easy to answer, but they help us glean the right information that then our team of experts and our casting team able to take that and actually create so we take that information that we've collected from you, and then we create personalized casting recommendations specific to your work. And those casting recommendations will share the narrator, the narrator's biography, as well as some general samples, audio samples from that narrator. And now this is an important step and an important differentiation for us versus in ACX, where with ACX, when you're searching for that narrator, I think you'll see on their site 46,000, 47,000 different narrators advertised. And it's on you to search and zero in on, okay, I need this type of voice that has this sort of voice age range and these style elements to it. And that's great. And that can work very well, but it can also be very overwhelming. And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to simplify that. We work with a tremendous collection of voice talent. The narrators that we work with have created thousands and thousands of audiobooks. And so anyone we recommend for your work, you can trust that narrator will deliver a very high quality performance. But we also want to make it easier for you to make that decision. So what we do then is we filter our list and we zero in on, the 5 or the 10 best options that we think would work great for your book. And then once we've presented them to you, it's very easy. You listen to the samples, you can request an audition. And when we do that, we'll actually have 1 to 2 of the narrators that you're interested in read usually a 4, 5, 6 minute sample from your book. That way you can hear your book read by your narrator. And I should also mention that during this process, when we cast narrators, we do so at a range of per finished hour rates. So we don't just force you into a one rate fits all model. We will give you, if we give you 10 options, you'll have a nice range of very high quality voice talent at a range of per finished hour rates, which again is all about giving you as the author the choice to make the right investment decision for your audiobook, because it really is an investment in audio as a format.
Yeah.
And so, so you have the casting list, you've heard the samples, now you've had an audition, and then at that moment you're ready to select the narrator, and it's as simple as clicking a button and you make the narrator selection. We coordinate a few things behind the scenes, and your narrator is really off and running performing the audiobook. So the first thing they'll do is provide a much longer sample for you to review the style and the tone and the tempo and all those fun things to make sure everything there is flawless. And then at that moment, narrator will go and work on the full audiobook production. And we coordinate all of this inside our publishing workflow to make it very easy for you. So I don't know if you have any questions on that part. I just sort of shared a lot of info, but I can also jump into then the publishing aspect once we have the book approved too.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear that part actually. We don't really talk about it much behind the scenes, so I'd love to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So the simplest step to summarize: all your information ports right from draft to digital. You tell us about your book. We recommend narrators. We coordinate, together the narrator selection process. And then, once all of the audio is done, you have the final review. And once you've approved, then you're able to publish to our 20 plus partners. And again, as part of that notion of choice and control, you're able to opt in or opt out of any one of our partners. So if there's one in particular, only one that you want to work with and say that's the right one for me, right, well, then you can do that too. Or if you want to work with everyone, obviously we facilitate that. And that's as easy as, literally just check boxes, and then you press publish, and, then our team finalizes all the processing and makes sure the book and all of the accompanying details reach all of those partners.
Yeah. That's fantastic, man. And I don't know if you've mentioned, I think you may have mentioned this, but you guys are in 170 plus markets worldwide, right?
Yeah, so we have listening occurring on our sort of audiobook platform in over 170 countries. All partners, all channels, all business models, and we're constantly expanding that list. So at the end of the day, it's about creating fantastic audiobooks and then selling those audiobooks or providing the opportunity to sell them in many locations as possible to give you that choice. So it's 170, probably 170 I don't know, 4 or 5 today where we have, active listening ongoing, which is incredible.
Really, it's just I fly a lot, and so everywhere I land, I download an audiobook from you guys, and then I'm boosting your numbers.
Yeah, it's actually one. Yeah, that's what we don't share. We love that's why we use that high number of countries, but not the actual number of users, because we actually know it's just you jet setting, with all the advertising revenue from the podcast and everywhere else.
Well, so speaking of global, one of the big questions we got right away, and Joanna Penn actually was one of the first people to ask this, but this is open to everyone everywhere, right? There's no geographic limitation on who can actually produce an audiobook.
Yep. No restrictions. As long as you own the rights, we'll work with you. And, whether it's creation and distribution or distribution only, it's a fully international platform.
And if they come in with their audio files, then they can actually distribute for free. There's still the cut. There's still the royalty cut, right? Or do I have that backwards?
Nope, you're correct. So if you already have an audiobook today, again, you easily enter Findaway Voices, and it's really as simple as adding, finalizing your book's details and then adding your audio, and then audio files, and then once you publish, there's no cost to you as the rights owner, as the author. And all that exists is what you were mentioning is for any audiobook sale, authors keep 80% of all net royalties that Findaway collects, and then Findaway keeps the other, shares the other 20%. So if you come to Findaway Voices with an existing audiobook and publish it through us, there's no cost to you. All that happens is we share all the net royalties 80-20, with 80 of course going to the author.
Right. Yeah, and then the royalty that you guys get is determined by the platform, and of course ACX or Audible doesn't quite play the same game as everyone else, so there's a different rate there. But
imagine how that works.
I'm really hopeful. One of the things I'm really hopeful about, first of all, the ability to control our own pricing. Audible, well, not so much Audible, but Amazon has a history of doing price matching, and we hope that's going to carry over to Audible. But this ability to control our own pricing gives us a lot of flexibility. It breaks that. I'm hoping it will break that credit system, because if I can offer my book, let's say I've got a 20-hour or 30-hour book, and I'm able to offer it for, instead of $25 to $35, I'm offering it for sale at $4.99. Right? And because I'm not splitting my royalty with a narrator, I paid the narrator outright, so that there's overhead involved. But because I'm not splitting that, then I stand a better chance of recouping my overhead over time, based on that 80% royalty that I get from I don't want to phrase it that way. It's not an 80% royalty. I get 80% of the royalty Findaway gets, so it comes out to like 45% or so, right? I mean, it's going to be a little different per channel.
Exactly. Yeah, and we share all of that. Before you publish, you'll see an entire rate sheet.
Right. There's nothing hidden.
You create an account with us, so there's nothing. We share all that up front. But you're right, because we could definitely run some examples where even by discounting the list price, you'll make more per sale because of the royalty rates from some of our partners than you would on that Audible platform.
Well, yeah, let's put it in perspective, because the best you're going to make from ACX is 40%. Like, even if you don't do the royalty split with a narrator, your best rate is 40%. So pretty much anything you guys do is going to beat 40%.
Yeah, and especially because they do, most of the pricing there that occurs does so off the sale price, which of course Audible and they're going to determine, whereas ours is all based off the list price. Again, for all of our partners that are not Audible and Amazon, and so by setting a smart list price, you're actually able to make more more royalties per unit sale there. Which I think, again, to your point, it's all about creating the right price strategy and then having that control to execute on it to, bring consumers to you. And that, the more that we can break from that credit model, the more opportunities I think you'll have to bring in new listeners and new consumers, because like anything else, price does matter. And so, if you can offer, the first book at $4.99, $6.99 or so, well, then you might hook a new listener, and then the rest of your books might be $12.99 or $14.99. But once that, listener has fallen in love with the story and with the narrator, well, then you're off and running with them.
Right. And I think that there are several key differences between the way the audiobook world works and the ebook world works. And one of those is in the form of how you can obtain that file and consume it. I don't know I know a lot of people are pretty much getting their audio from Audible, but I don't know that there's a brand loyalty there the way there is in the ebook world. Like, I think if people find out, I can get, Kevin Tomlinson's thrillers on audio for, $5 or under, or $10 or under, or whatever, rather than paying $35 or having to use a credit or whatever, I'll just go get them from this site. That's the way I feel about it. Now, I don't know if that's the way it's going to work in practice.
That's our thesis. That's our philosophy too. And why we believe, and this goes back to where we started, and align so closely with Draft to Digital, where more options to sell are better. And, so why not have your book on both places and let consumers decide where they want to go and what that right experience is for them. And then, you're able to do that with our platform. And, that to me is what's so advantageous for an author.
Yeah. I like having options. I like it when authors have options. So, all right. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. What's funny about this is there's this nagging voice in the back of my head that says I'm going to forget to mention something because we talk about it so often, and I'm going to think it's already covered.
Right, so, exactly. It's like, wait, which conversation was that? Right. That one?
So, to the listener, if there was a question you had that you did not hear an answer to, reach out to us. First of all, there's a blog post that I'm continuously updating, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But if it's a bit.ly link, it's bit.ly/findawayd2d. So you can go there and I'll take you to the blog post, or just go to the Draft to Digital blog and click on blog. You'll be able to find it. It's within the past month or so. But you can also reach out to me or to Kelly. How can they reach you if they have questions, Kelly?
Yep, absolutely. So the easiest way is just to send me an email, Lytle@findaway.com. Lytle is Lytle. And, that's probably the simplest way. You can follow us on Twitter @Findaway Voices and send us a note there and we can connect. And so, between those two ways, we'll get a response out to you as soon as we can, especially as we gear up toward launch here with Draft to Digital.
Yeah. And my plan is for this episode to go live a week prior. That means this Friday. So I got to make sure I stay on the ball with that. But if you check the show notes, you'll find links to Kelly's email, to the blog post, to the site itself. And, of course, you can always reach out to me, too. I will answer any and all questions I have been. Hit me up on Twitter, of course, or on the you'll get all the contact information. I always read that at the end of the show anyway. So, Kelly, man, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I know you're busy.
We better be, right?
man, I got to tell you, this took over my workload pretty much for the past couple of weeks. So it's been interesting to try to keep up with content and that sort of thing. But I'm excited about it, man. It's to me, it's a step forward in a very right direction. Authors need this. This is a resource that's been kind of unattainable for some authors, and there's still the overhead. We didn't really talk much about this, but you guys are actually working on ways to reduce the cost of production too, right? Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, certainly. So in addition to the way we cast recommended narrators, which is very unique, in doing so at a range of investment points for the audio, we're also exploring a number of options to continue to make audiobooks more cost effective for the rights owner. So everything from home studio kits that we can loan out and provide if as well as guidelines, very detailed guidelines for how to record and how to upload into our system and do all of that to make that easy. And also, continuously evolving, where narrators are coming from, right? Yeah. And there's, technology, recording technology today makes it a little easier to record. Now, of course, performing an audiobook is an incredible, incredible art form. And so we have ideas for school, sort of narration school, as well as, an entire curriculum that will graduate narrators through sort of a voices curriculum that makes them, allows them to be, essentially, for lack of a better phrase, voices approved. And then you as the author know you can trust them because that, that performance, that subtle performance, as a lifelong audiobook listener, man, it's amazing to see how talented narrators are and what they can do. And, we want to continue to grow that community as much as we can.
Right. Yeah, man, that's the only reason I have not already recorded my own audiobooks is because I don't feel like I can pull off the performance. So I would go to that school.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Kelly, thanks so much for being on the show, man. And everybody, if you got questions, of course, you can reach out to us. Stick around real quick, and you'll be able to hear me do the wrap-up. Otherwise, check the show notes for links to everything. And, of course, reach out and contact me anytime. You know I'm here. I'll help you out. So thanks again, Kelly.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So appreciate you having me on, and look forward to many more chats.
I'm sure they're coming. All right. All right, everybody, stick around, and we'll see you after this break. All right, that was my interview with Kelly Lytle. I hope you enjoyed that. As I mentioned, and you can find this in the show notes, there is a link to the blog post that we've done. It's bit.ly /findaway_D2D, and you can go there. You can get that from the show notes as well. Learn a lot more about what we're doing here. In general, what's happening is Drafted Digital has partnered with Findaway so that we can make the onboarding process much easier for Drafted Digital authors than it would be otherwise. So, not that it's not difficult to get into. You can go to findawayvoices.com and get right in there. But what we've done is make it sort of streamlined so that from our author dashboard, you can transfer all your information over very quickly and get into the process and start looking for a narrator that works with your budget. And it's very budget friendly, really. I mean, honestly, it's looking at sort of general prices. It's been much lower than what I've seen from offers from elsewhere. So check that out. And I do think that everyone needs an audiobook. If you've published, I think you should work to get your book into audio. It is a sort of emerging market. I mean, you need to do it now. Okay, listen, if I could go back in time, start a podcast earlier, and tell you to get into ebook publication back in 2008, I would do that. So this is me traveling from the future, Wordslinger from 2026, telling you won't regret doing everything you can to get your book into audio. Just trust me on this. Now, I'm saying this as somebody who only has a couple of audiobooks out himself, but the expense is there. I mean, there is overhead to this. But I've got some plans to use like Kickstarter and other tools like that, crowdfunding tools to bring in the funds I need to pay for the overhead. And then I'll recoup, any of my own expenses from the sale of audiobooks over time because I'll own the full rights to the book. So you might consider that strategy too. Maybe I'll write let me know if you want this. I may write an entire blog post on my strategy for producing audiobooks. Something I haven't done yet, but it's a strategy that I intend to use. And I'll put it out there as a sort of test and we can see how it works. Now, we've come to the portion of the show where I do a bit of housekeeping. I kind of hit on some of this earlier. But what I would appreciate from you, if you like the Wordslinger podcast and you'd like to help support it, there are a couple of things that you can do. One of those is if you will go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere where you're listening to this podcast, where you originally downloaded it, if you will go in, and on your players too, I think you can do this on the apps and players as well. So if you will go in and find the show and rate and rank the show and write a review, that is tremendously helpful. It helps other people find it. I appreciate it. And you see, I mean, I'll read your review on air. I have an app that scans for it. I think it may only do iTunes. So if you're writing reviews on other platforms and I'm not reading them, that's why. However, if you would like, send me a copy of your review and tell me where it's appearing from the website. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com, click on contact, and use the field there, the little form there, to send me an email and just tell me, just copy and paste your review in there. And you can also, and please tell me where it's appearing if it's not in iTunes. Or if it is in iTunes and I haven't gotten to it, you can do that too. I don't want to muddy those waters per se. I get to them when they come to me, so I don't want to double up, but whatever, reach out. And if you just want to write to me directly and, ask a question or say something about the show or say something to one of the guests, you can do that from there as well. And please do. I know for a fact I've had a couple people email me and say nice things about the guests, and I pass these things on to the guests. Okay? And they love it. We had a guest, Jenny Nash, fairly recently. I think that was, let me scan down what episode that was. That was Wordslinger Podcast episode 115. That was the Accelerating Your Author Career with Jenny Nash. If you, I had someone send me a very nice note for her recently, and I forwarded it on, and she wrote back to say just how much she appreciated that. So this can make a guest's day. They love knowing that they're getting heard. They love knowing that they're having an impact, and it's wonderful for them. And I want to give them that, at least that gift, as a bit of joy in their life. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now, other ways you can support the show. There are financial ways you can support the show. If you want to donate to the Patreon campaign, even if it's just a $1 or $2 a month, I use all funds from that Patreon campaign to cover some of the overhead and costs of the show. I buy new equipment. I recently bought some new equipment using those funds. It covers, the cost of hosting, the cost of, the tools that I use for production. If I buy new software, something along those lines. Now, I don't do that very often, but because I am a creature of habit. But I do appreciate receiving those. But you can go to wordslingerpodcast.com, and you'll see on every single episode there is a link to Patreon. But on the homepage itself, there is a support the Wordslinger podcast on Patreon. There's a little logo right there. You'll go to that, and you can decide to donate anything your heart desires. And any amount is appreciated. A couple of bucks is great. If you want to throw, $20 to $50 to $100 in there, $1,000, hey man, you be you. And I'll love you for it. And I do mention Patreon patrons on air, just to thank them, and I do appreciate it. I'm still, I don't know if I'm forever going to be in the process, quote unquote, of improving the whole Patreon listing. I have a goal there, by the way, and it's lofty. I'm not even kidding you. I'd like this show to start earning $5,000 per month. At $5,000 per month, the show will have all the resources it needs. It will have contingency money for little things that go wrong, equipment that needs to be emergency replaced, that sort of thing, and it would be self-sufficient. So. Whatever. You know what? You don't get a thing in life unless you're asking for it anyway. So there you go. But I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for those who are contributing. You're a blessing, really, honestly. I can't tell you how grateful I am. Now, If you'd like to have a question posed on the show, like to leave a voicemail, or would like to ask me any question, you can ask me about writing. I will talk about craft. I will talk about marketing. I will talk about all aspects of being an indie published author. I am, by the way, I have officially been named the Indie Author Advocate. So I accept that title and all the trappings that come with it, and burden of responsibility as well. I'm honored by that. And so I will, if you have ever thought about being an indie author and have not taken the steps to get into it, you're what I call a will-be author. I will help you in any way that I possibly can. Trust me on this. You can ask anybody who knows me. So any way that I possibly can help you, I will help you. Ask me anything. But if you'd like to call in with a question, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com. You can click on the send voicemail button that is floating on the right-hand side of that screen. And that's only on the podcast page. But from there, you can leave me a short voicemail. I think the limit is 1 minute. And I get an email and a recording that I can download and play on air. If you do not wish for that to be played on air, just say so at the beginning. And make sure you give me your name and where you're calling from as well. That's always kind of cool to know. You can also call me directly at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673, where you can leave me a voicemail, and same rules and conditions apply. I would love to hear who you are and where you're calling from, so make sure you throw that in there. And, it's probably not a bad practice to keep these at a minute. But I think on that one you might be able to ramble on a little more. I've had people actually record voicemails from their devices or their computers and send them to me as attached audio files. You are welcome to do that as well. My recommendation is contact me through the easiest way to do this. Contact me through the contact button on my website at wordslingerpodcast.com. And just say I have an audio file I'd like to send you, and I'll give you details on how to do that. It's really easy, actually. It's just an email attachment usually. Now, my favoriteest way of all of supporting me and my work in the show is to read my books. If you don't mind, if you are a lover of thrillers, in particular, you're going to enjoy this. You can go to wordslingerpodcast.com and click the books button. You can also go to kevintomlinson.com and click that exact same books button. These are the same site, folks. I am that lazy. I pointed the web presence for the podcast to a page on the site so that all my stuff would be in one place. But if you go to the books page on that site, you will see my entire catalog of books. Up top are all the thrillers, and then I'll have this divided by sections. At least once a year I go through and retool this whole page. But right there on that site, I've got sci-fi, I've got fantasy, I've got collaborative work I've done, and I've even got some nonfiction on there. If you'll go click that, anything on that, what you'll get to do is find where you purchase your books, where you prefer to purchase your books online. Using our universal book links from Draft to Digital, and pick something up to read. It's summertime. Sit out by the pool and read a Kevin Tomlinson thriller or something. That's how you can support me and the show, and I appreciate that. And I don't mind if you go out and tell people what you think too. Leave me a review on Amazon and elsewhere. Share with people on social media that you just read one of my books and you enjoy it. All that stuff is very helpful to me, and I really appreciate it. That's why I do everything I do. So Draft to Digital and Wordslinger Podcast and partnerships with people and, whatever, all that aside, what I am, when it all comes down to it, is a writer, and this is the work of my life. So it's what God blessed me with, and I'm happy to bless others as well. So anyway, it's been a great week. This has been a short week. This is the 4th of July holiday at the head of this week. So I'm going to wrap up now and get things ready. And then tomorrow night, by the way, my wife and I are going to see Neil Gaiman here in Houston. So envy me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the interview with Kelly Lytle today. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you as you go into this new weekend and the weeks ahead. I hope nothing but good comes to your life. And I will talk to you next time.
Word Slinger.